I always say that Frankie Beverly and Mays tapped into their theological spirit with that song Joy and Pain, Sunshine and Rain, because often it is that close for so many families in this season. While it's so much joy and being able to gather together, for many, there will be empty seats at the table, which will really cause a continuation of them navigating grief for their lost loved ones. And so we take it as very important in this season to make sure that we create spaces and resources for our congregation community. So here at Third New Hope, we started this during the pandemic. We had a strolling memorial. We had all of the pictures of those individuals that we lost throughout the year, and we invited the families to come through and to share as a moment of processing. And this year we've done the same with a memorial wall that will remain up for the remainder of the year. Again, encouraging these families that we haven't forgotten about their loved ones and that we're still here with them to journey with them through this season of sorrow.
Pastor Thomas, this is a personal issue for you as well as a church issue. Talk about the things not only that your congregation is confronting, but the things that you are now confronting this time of year.
Well, it's very interesting. The community that we serve in Brightmoor is probably one of the harder hit communities and could arguably be one of the poorest communities in the state of Michigan. And this whole thing wrapped around poverty and around trauma and the challenges that we're dealing with is just overwhelming. There's several things that are happening and some there's nothing we can do about. Just historically, I'm a baby boomer. I was born in 1960, and my generation is going home to be with the Lord. Mm. That's just natural. That's just nature. The next 15, 20 years, we're going home. All right. And so that's just happening. On top of the carnage that's happening in our streets with the gun violence, and then the amount of trauma that people within our communities have served. And so just 2 days ago, I lost my nephew to suicide. Mm. And so his mother, my sister passed on Good Friday, and it was just devastating to him. He was just completely devastated. And he started hearing voices. We tried to wrap around services for him. And we buried her ashes at Myrtle Beach in the ocean. And so 2 days ago, he drove to Myrtle Beach and he drowned himself. Oh. And, how do you how do you wrap your head around that, right? 22 years old. And what it is this, as Pastor Pressley was saying so eloquently, it's this compound. You know what I mean? Okay, one thing on top of another thing on top of another thing. And, the pastor's wisdom to give people a place to process, right? To process their grief and to be angry. All right, you know what I mean? And again, this is, I'm with him. I'm with you. I love this season, Stephen. I love Thanksgiving and Christmas. I was a poor kid, but I didn't have much, but this was always my season. All right, but to see the flip side, that there are people who are not at the table.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me that for you this is a balancing act then, right? You're trying to give yourself space and deal with this unimaginable amount of trauma, but you're also the pastor of a church where you have to make that space for other people. I mean, that's an incredible burden.
It's something that the body of Christ, especially in the African-American church, has been doing from day one. The church was always that space. And generations who had it way worse than us. All right, didn't have air conditioning, didn't have praise teams, didn't have all the fancy stuff that we have, but they had the church. And it was a place that they could come and be prayed over, hands could be laid upon them. And so now we're at another stage. And so we are embracing behavioral health and making room for development center to come in and to do sessions and to teach people about anxiety and about depression and those type of things. And then empowering them to really acknowledge that we're going through.
Dr. Lockett, you also are balancing the professional with the personal this year. Talk about how that works for you.
Yeah. So, my son received his wings through gun violence in December of 2020. So it's coming up on 20 years. I mean, on 2 years that's taken place. And for me, I had to take a step back because I deal with that every single day. And so I had to take care of me, because if I don't take care of me, I can't take care of anyone else. So I had to take a few months off and go into that therapeutic space to make sure that I was equipped spiritually, mentally, and emotionally to go back out and make the impact that I make in other lives. One of the things that I started just September the 9th, which would have been his 30th birthday, we started the Portia Lockett Foundation. We're here to help you heal, offer you hope, and hold your heart as you're going through that grieving journey. And that grieving journey doesn't always necessarily have to look like the loss of a loved one. Mm-hmm. It could be the loss of a lifestyle, losing a ligament, losing a home, losing a relationship. There's so many different ways that we lose, in this space. Losing a pet. Some people de-emphasize, the loss of a pet when that furry animal is part of that family. And so some people go through that grieving journey because the loss of a pet, the loss of a neighbor. I mean, we have just amplified the way grief looks. And nowadays, you're given that 2-week period to grieve, because it's like, do believe her name is Alexandra Grande, has a song out that says, "Thank you next." Mm-hmm. So you got that 2-week window that says, okay, we've served you your chicken dinner and we've sent you a couple of cards, threw you a couple of dollars. Okay, thank you next, because we've got to get on to the next person. And we have to make sure that we're giving people time to grieve and not putting a time limit on it.
Yeah. Reverend Pressley, I mean, that reminds me of the sort of sustaining work, I guess, that the church has to do here. I mean, we're talking about the holidays, and that's a particularly tough time for folks. But the church always is called to this space, and because of the things that we experience as African Americans, not just in Detroit, but all over the country, the need is always there, and so the demand on the church is always kind of at a high level.
No, very much so. And I'm blessed here at Third New Hope because we have a significant amount of licensed counselors and therapists who are also members of our congregation. And as a result, we started a ministry called Seasons of Grace, which provides people an opportunity to access these counselors in order to process the grief that they're experiencing. And so we situated the month of October as our mental health awareness month. And we even had settings for our youth and children to be able to process as well, because along lines of the items of loss that Dr. Lockett mentioned, divorce, family separations are things that children are having to encounter, particularly in this holiday season, that we want to make sure that we're providing them the resource to think through and to find healthy ways to navigate the challenges in which they're experiencing.
In Brightmoor, we have a significant portion of people who are homeless, and they're unhoused. They're living in abandoned homes. Mm-hmm. No running water, no utilities. All right. And so when we first started feeding people, we thought we'd get 30, 40 people, and we're up to 200 people a day.
Wow.
All right. We're doing 200 meals a day, 4 days a week. All right. And then inflation, to a person that's doing well, to the middle class and upper middle class, inflation, it affects everyone. But to the poor, it hits straight to the core. All right, so I was watching a brother the other day who had a Yukon. He had an older Yukon at the gas station, putting almost $100 worth of gas
in the tank, yeah.
His tank. Now, I'm sure when he bought that Yukon, he thought it was a good deal. But now he doesn't think it's a good deal. We laughed and joked at the pump, but it is causing people to make very, very serious decisions that some of them were already making, but just making from a deeper standpoint.
Yeah.
So we try to do a dualism, if you will, to hold people accountable, all right, but also to represent in a manner that gives them respect. And if you need, that's what the church is here for.
Yeah.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.